Hey guys, what's going on? So in today's video, I want to show you a third way of web scraping. This page that we've been scraping for a while called bookstoscrape.com. So what I'll do is I'll link below and link above the first two ways of how I showed you how to scrape it. One was using Beautiful Soup, and then the next one was using Scrapey. And in this tutorial, I'm actually going to show you how to do it using Selenium. Now, Selenium's been widely used for testing code to make sure that from a functional standpoint that the code is functional, that it passes QA. Though there are some cool capabilities within Selenium, and one of them especially is the ability to log into different websites when you need to log in versus clicking buttons and all that stuff. So this is going to be a basic rundown, but for those of you guys who don't remember, this is the website we're going to be scraping. I'm going to walk through the code in a second, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to first give you a demo. So for those of you who remember, this is the website we've been scraping for a while. So what I want to get from this is I want to get the title, I want to get how many stars it has, I want to get the price, and I want to get whether it's in stock or not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run this, and I'm using a Chrome driver, which I'll walk through in a second. What it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and open an instance of Google Chrome. It's going to say up on the top somewhere that it's actually being controlled by a system or something around those lines. And right now I've defined that I wanted to scrape 3 pages. Because I am using Sublime Text, I can't use input and ask the user how many times I want him to scrape it. You can certainly do that. You're just going to have to run it in Terminal or some other kind of IDE. But for now, I've just hard-coded 3 pages. You can change this to whatever you want. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run this code. So what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and it's going to sift through 3 pages. And then what I've asked it to do is find all the different elements on that web page for these specific books, and then go ahead and let's output into Excel under the name test.xlsx. All right, I'll just run it and then we'll scroll through it in a second. So let's run it. And you're going to see up top it says Chrome is being controlled by an automatic test software, and you'll also see these numbers increment on their own. Because I've said I only want 3 pages, it's going to go up to page 4 and it's going to stop and not produce anything else after that. And so now as I go down, what I'm going to wait for is I'm going to wait for a file to show up here called test.xlsx, and I'm going to go ahead and open that. And because I ran 3 pages, there's 20 items per page, I should have 60 entries. And of course, it's giving me an error. And sure enough, I have 60 items. So remember, this starts from 0 and it goes all the way to 60. So I've gone ahead and I scraped the title, the price, whether it's in stock, and the star rating as well. And so this is nothing new for those of you who've been watching my web scraping tutorials, but let's go through the code right now. And what you can do is, like I said, I'll link the other tutorials above and I'll link them down below. And you can compare the difference between Beautiful Soup, between Scrapey and Selenium. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and import our basic drivers. So Selenium import WebDriver. We also want to, in this case, what I like about Selenium is it allows me to go ahead and define the options for Chrome, so I can actually open this up in incognito mode, which when you're web scraping, sometimes you may want to do. It's just a good idea to do. And then I can go ahead and say webdriver.chrome. So let me just talk a little bit about the WebDriver. The WebDriver is a driver that this code is going to read, and it's going to use that WebDriver to open up Google Chrome. You can also specify a Firefox WebDriver as well. So it's really up to you which one you want to use. I haven't seen anything outside of Chrome or Firefox. Those are the only 2 I'm aware of. So in this case, all we're doing is we're defining our options. So when it opens Chrome, I want it to open up incognito mode, and that's all I'm saying over here. So anything defined as browser is basically now going to be controlling the Google Chrome driver with these specific options integrated into it. I've said that I want to go through the code 3 times, and that's going to be used in my loop down here, but we'll get there in a second. And then I just want to define my URL, the first page for the URL. If you wanted to start this on page 2, and if you specify 3 pages, then you're going to get between page 2 and page 5. So it really depends on where you want to start, but I always want to start on the first page. I've wrapped this all into a function. You generally don't have to wrap into a function. I've just chosen to do it because I wanted to try something different. But the function I've got is get data, and in there I'm passing in my URL, which is my starter URL, which is this, and then how many pages I want to scrape. And I'm saying currently set my index to 0, and then I want to initiate my URLs by getting my browser.get function, which is basically going to take this starter URL and it's going to say, Google Chrome, go ahead and get whatever's on this website and allocate that to URLs, the data that's in there. I'm going to start an empty data dictionary because I need a place to put all the data as it starts running. At the same time, I also want to make sure that I'm converting this into a data frame. So this data element here is really going to be used for every single iteration of the loop. It's going to rewrite, or it's going to overwrite what it knew in the previous run. But as it's doing that, I'm going to be appending it to the data frame so that we have some permanent memory. And then finally, one of the things you'll notice on that website is all the stars are actually put in words. So I didn't want to have 1, 2, 3 come in. So I defined a dictionary and I said anytime it finds the word 1, replace it with the number 1 and so forth. And now I've got my loop in here and I said, while my current number, which is 0 here, is less than the number of pages that I've defined, go ahead and find all the elements under the CSS selector ol.row. So if I were to just open this up and I were to go here and I go to page inspect, we're going to do this together. So we're going to go through all of this stuff until I actually find the class that I'm looking for. So this has all been in a container. Great. And we're just about getting there. So I don't need that. I need all the stuff in here. I'm going to click one more. And so I need everything under section here. So once I click on section, you will see that I need everything under the div folder, and here it is. So this entire container over here, this entire thing here is going to be defined by class ol.row. So what I'm saying is go ahead and pull everything in ol.row and let's just set everything in there. Whatever's in there, let's just put it and allocate it to books. Now I'm going to loop through every single book. And in order for me to do that, what I'm essentially doing is I'm saying all of this is defined as books today because, like I said, we've allocated it under books. Now I'm going to say for book and books. That means for every single book in this entire container. So this is book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. And that's what this loop is basically doing. And it's saying for all those individual books, let's go ahead and pull the title. Let's allocate it to our dictionary called title. And let's find it by CSS selector. So one of the things you'll find with Selenium is you're going to find this find elements by quite a bit. You'll see find elements by CSS selector. You'll see find it by class name. You'll see find it by XPath. So there's a whole different ways you can go ahead and find it. And this is now sitting in the CSS selector image tag, and I want to get the attribute alt. For the second one, I went and I pulled it by price. So why don't we go and follow this example? It's a little bit more involved. So let's just go to the slightly more complicated one. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look for product price. So that's the div tag that I've got here. So if you see, I've got div product price. So we've selected that one. It says div product price. And then I'm going to go to, it's sitting under P, and then the class is price color. So you're going to do p.price color, and it's going to return back the text that's associated with that, which is what this text means. So that's how you go ahead and do this stuff in Selenium. And once you go through all of those, and you can just follow this example, this is going to be put on GitHub as well. Once you go through all of those, you're eventually going to be able to then pull all this data. And then finally what you want to do here is when I actually have the star rating, this is where after I find the star rating, it gives me the actual number in letters, that is. And I want to convert it into numbers, and that's what this line here is for. And then finally, as I'm going through each one of these iterations, this entire data is now for one book. So if you go through this loop, it's basically doing it for every book. So the next time it goes through the loop, it's going through a second book, but it's not storing that anywhere. So I lose, every time it runs, I lose the previous one. To avoid that, I append it to a data frame, and that's what this data frame was for. So every single time this thing runs, it's going to append whatever data it is to the new data frame, and it's going to keep doing that until current is either equal to or greater than pages. Well, in this case, it's got to be equal to pages. If it's not equal to pages, I'm going to go ahead and increment current by 1 every time. This next button basically means this is me finding the CSS selector for the next button, which is under li.next. It's under the A tag, and you're just going to hit .click. This will tell you, okay, I found the element. This will actually say, I need you to go ahead and click it, and that's how it goes on to the next page. Finally, I'm going to return that as a data frame. And when I run my function getDataURL pages, remember this is actually returning a data frame. So I don't have to do df.to_excel. I could just do my function name .to_excel, write it out here wherever I want to store it, and then have it available for me after I run it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. This is a really quick tutorial on showing you how to do a third option, a third way of scraping the exact same data using another format. And in this case, that's Selenium. So if you guys like this, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will talk to you in the next one. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.